Public Works. It is September 12th, 4 o'clock, and we're here for a Public Works Committee. Dan Gookin is in Ventura surfing or doing something silly, but we're going to have to... I have another Dan here.
Yes.
So our first item today is Government Way Amendment Number 1 for additional professional engineering services from Welsh Comer. Mike Becker, you're the storyteller today. Okay, take it away.
Good afternoon, Public Works. Before you, we have a staff report where staff has prepared a brief history and analysis of our request for additional monies to be dedicated towards the Government Way project. Welch Comer is presently under contract for this project. With the departure of our city engineer, we needed some things assistance in those things to help us take care of some critical path items to secure the project's grant funding. We requested Welch Comer to step up in this situation, and they were able to accommodate us accordingly. Our request was for Welch Comer to assist the city in securing additional right-of-way and easements, as well as moving forward with the utility agreement between Avista, Dalton Water Association, and Frontier. This utility agreement is a requirement to satisfy ITD's right-of-way certification and is one of the final pieces to ensure that we secure that grant money to put towards this project. Welch Comer is presently completed some of these items. They are still coordinating with some of the sign removal out there, as well as dealing with Avista now wishes to take advantage of the construction window to install high-pressure gas line out there. This amendment agreement is for a time and materials not to exceed $15,000. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. The funds will be transferred into the appropriate account from impact fees in the general fund. We believe that Welch Comer has stepped up during this transition period that the city is going through, and we've been able to secure some of our checklist items to keep this project moving forward. With that, I will entertain any questions.
Well, I see. Now, this is an existing project, and just in a nutshell, what is the Government Way project? I know we had some out there. They were talking about going in with other jurisdictions on maybe a traffic circle or something, but just in a nutshell, what is the Government Way project?
The Government Way project is basically a utilities extension of services up the Government Way corridor, as well as hard surface improvements, essentially widening Government Way,
the more widening
sidewalks,
yep,
appropriate stormwater mitigation infrastructure.
And again, the main reason we're seeing this is, again, because of the gap in our engineering department.
Yes, we believe that Gordon Dobler was previously engaging to do this on his own. He was working closely with the other agencies to secure all the necessary lands to acquire the right-of-way as well as construction easements for this project. With Gordon's departure, that void needed to be filled in an immediate timeline. Staff was able to help fill in some of the pieces, but we needed to have that expertise and professional know-how to take it to the finish line.
Well, and I note this is one of three kind of related type of projects, and again, so this is something that you expect is going to happen on a temporary basis as we need now, but down the road when they kind of reconfigure the departments, we shouldn't have to do this as much?
I don't believe we will need to do this as much, correct. This is project specific in this case with Welch Comer and the Government Way project. We will be immediately proceeding another one for the Ironwood and 95 project in a similar fashion. Yes.
Okay.
Did I answer that
Again,
question?
Yeah, and we've seen some of these, and again, kind of might have the same position that the public and business entities shouldn't have to suffer because we've got a temporary personnel change, so.
Exactly. In this case, the city would have been paying Gordon to do it, and then with Gordon's departure, we're now having to pay the consultant to do the same work. This is just formalizing it and making sure that the monies are accounted for appropriately.
And I notice actually, I mean, this and the other items that they're lump sum dollar figures up to a certain limit, and I assume that's kind of tied into what we recently approved on some of the levels of bidding situations that you anticipate. I mean, that's the maximum?
Yes, I've asked the engineering firms to produce what they anticipate it would take to complete these tasks and bring it to the finish line. We anticipate the city engineer replacement will be in place by the time that additional professional opinions are needed to move forward with this project.
Just a couple questions. So this being paid with Gordon Lett, the engineer not here, money is coming from
Impact fees?
impact fees in that district, that area, obviously.
I would assume so.
Okay. So Welsh Comer has been doing the project, and so this doesn't appear to be a conflict that you go to the guys who we're paying to do the project and you ask them to give us a number that'll work for us to accomplish these things.
That's an excellent question. We don't feel that this is actually a conflict of interest for Welch Comer to be pursuing. Ordinarily, in other cases, cities have been known to hire companies to acquire right-of-ways and easements for them. In this case, we believe that Gordon was handling most of this work himself. We just simply have taken that work and distributed it out to Welch Comer. They have already done some of the necessary upfront legwork to take this to the finish line. So it just made sense to proceed forward with the consultant hired for this project. Bottom line is we'll still get the same level of service from the consultant here in this case to get a final product out of this this project. And again, these were critical path items that the city needed to get done before the end of the fiscal year, which we all know is at the end of the month.
So there's no way this can go over budget. Is that correct? I mean, you aren't going to come back to us and go, guess what, they made a mistake or it cost them more time. You don't
At this
perceive
time,
that?
we're not anticipating this because there's only a few items remaining left.
Okay.
We asked them to provide us with a high dollar amount, and again, this is time and materials not to exceed, so we feel that we will come in below that,
Time and materials.
not to exceed. You can't forget
Remember
that part.
Not to exceed.
Well, it sounds like this is really an add-on to things already performing, and we're going to make the job bigger. Is that with these extra duties?
The project itself remains the same. It's just that the
But I mean, their
responsibilities
duties.
that were not originally in Welch Comer's estimate that was covered by
Right.
the city engineer, are now back into their scope of work. You're good?
Well, I would be prepared to make a motion to request council to authorize staff to sign agreement amendment 1 with Welch Comer and Associates for additional professional engineering services for the Government Way project at an additional amount of not to exceed $15,000.
I'll second that. Been moved and second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Consent, please. Moving on, number 2, Ironwood 95, US 95 intersection improvements, amendment number 3. We're already up to number 3
Yes.
for additional professional engineering services with JUB. Mike?
Okay, this is ditto. to what we just got through.
We
The
gotta
only
ask them all
difference
those
is
questions again.
there was a lot less that needed to be involved, and this is why this one's for $10,000 amount in their time and materials. They have already successfully completed a conditional right-of-way agreement that was one of the necessary steps for ITD to secure, again, that grant money. Basically, this is the same thing. It'll be covered by impact fees. We went ahead and moved forward with this just to identify all the critical path items. This was presently outside of their scope of work, and we needed some help to get to the finish line under the time crunch. They've already completed a major hurdle. This is just formalizing it so we can pay them. There was an amendment to this, should be included in your packet. Everything that was highlighted yellow is different than the original packet. The first page is basically an agreement form that we've always typically have done with JUB engineers, and it was just a heading on the scope of services that needed to change on that.
But the price didn't change.
Questions?
Pardon?
Got any questions?
No, just, what is the target date for this project down the road? I mean, this is engineering for it, but how far ahead of the game are we, or?
This is a good question. By completing the conditional right-of-way certification, we now have some breather room where the project won't necessarily go out to bid till March of this coming year. I'm sorry, it'll go out to bid before that, but March is basically when we can start with the start date on that.
Well, and I say that's, I mean, a second project and a different engineering company, and our third one is a different one yet, so I guess we're spreading the work around. I would make a motion to authorize council to have the council authorize staff to sign agreement amendment number 3 with JUB Engineering for additional professional engineering services for the Ironwood US 95 intersection improvements at an additional cost not to exceed $10,000.
Second. I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So JUB, is it the same situation that there's no conflict of interest? They're already involved in the project, and we're asking them to do a few more things to kind of finish it up. No conflict of interest there.
No conflict of interest here.
Looking over their shoulder or anything like that. No need to?
No need to, but we are.
Good.
We are paying attention to what both consulting firms are doing. And we are directing them accordingly for the workload. Again, staff is stepping up where we can. There's just some of that fine-tooth stuff that we need assistance in, and since they were hired to run with the project, they're familiar with some things that staff is not quite sure how to take it to the finish line. Again, JUB in this case, they've already satisfied the conditional right-of-way agreement with ITD and the Federal Highway Administration.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Consent, please. Okay, last one, another one with Lake City Engineering, Professional Engineering Services Agreement.
Okay, this one is not project-specific. We have presented this in front of council twice before with Welch Comer and JUB Engineers. As you recall, whenever we have development reviews and survey information needs to be reviewed on a professional level, we're required to either have a city engineer or what is called a QLPE, Qualified Licensed Professional Engineer, under contract to do that review and sign documents. In the process, we wanted to spread the work out amongst local firms. When we do that, though, local firms tend to be the firms that submit work to the city. So there is a conflict of interest, and we've already stumbled across one already where JUB represents Dalton Water Association, Welch Comer represents the city in the Government Way project. Now we need to have a third-party engineer to be that go-between. This is why we're presenting Lake City Engineering in front of council. Lake City Engineering has already met the criteria, and they have an existing contract with the city. That was the criteria that we established to select these engineering firms. We are going to hold Lake City Engineering to the same project scope that we're holding Welch Comer and JAB Engineers, not to exceed any of our general engineering services budget that was dedicated for this, and that's $25,000. So we're not asking for any more additional money. We're just asking permission to have a third engineer involved that we can take things to on a general services agreement to provide the city with general services, as well as settle these conflicts of interest that exist between the two consulting firms that is presently under contract with the city. And with that, we already have work set aside for Lake City Engineering. They're going to be able to assist us and help resolving some of these critical path items where there is this conflict on the Government Way project. Again, because JUB is representing Dalton Water Association, they can't do anything on behalf of the city for a Welch Comer project because it falls in the same project scope, essentially. With that, I know that this seems difficult to grasp, that we need 3 engineering firms, but because of that conflict of interest, this is why we're proceeding this way. Again, staff is regulating. We are policing how much work is being distributed out, and we'll make sure that we stay within that $25,000 budget. We do anticipate that there will be additional work coming down the pipeline. We believe that also that the new city engineer will be able to help alleviate some of that stress and burden on this budget amount of $25,000.
Well, I have a question. Is it a combined total not to exceed $25,000, or $25,000 individually times 3, which could amount to $75,000 liability?
Good question, yes. And maybe I didn't explain that well enough. It is just $25,000, and all 3 firms basically have to share in that dollar amount.
Okay.
With staff policing the work, we'll be able to say, okay, we're nearing this. Can you get it done before this date and under this dollar amount? If not, then we'll have to find some other mechanism to get something done by. But again, keep in mind that we are reaching the close of this fiscal year. We're approaching winter. It's no surprise that all these developments and contractors are at a mad scramble to get things done.
Right.
We're trying to provide, staff is trying to provide the level of service that the city has always provided to the development community. In this case, we've stepped up in our development review. And then we take things to the QLPE and we show them this is what conforms to our present code and policies and standards. And we just need the engineer to basically sign on the dotted line saying, yes, this meets code and it meets all the statutes that apply to a professional engineer's seal on these projects.
Well, I agree with the necessity for it and understand the why, but again, it seems to me like we potentially could have 3 of them run up a bill. So I guess you're saying that you guys are going to be the watchdog on that between the finance department or whatever, that once you get a cumulative total between the three of those contracts approaching $25,000, there'll be some kind of alarm going.
Yes, and we have Tim Martin, who's our street superintendent, who's also helped policing this, as well as we're bouncing things off of the deputy city administrator, Sam Taylor, as well. So we're keeping open line of communication with everyone, so they're well aware of where we sit, and where we're going, and hopefully where we'll end up with the new city engineer.
Okay.
So just a couple questions. So on this professional engineers, guys, the 25 grand is we do all the work, we set up all the paperwork, and he looks at it and goes, yeah, it's right, and signs it.
Basically, yes.
And so there's not a lot of them returning it back to you going, wait, this isn't right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we have 25 to spend on them, so every signature you could, whatever it costs, right?
Mm-hmm. We believe that doing it this way is not the most ideal way of doing a review, but it's a way we can streamline the process. We were doing this process before, but everything was going to Gordon, and then Gordon would look over, the water department's comments, the wastewater's comments, stormwater's comments, and then he was producing his own comments as well. But he was encompassing all that. What we're simply doing is now staff is still doing our red line comments, water, wastewater, stormwater, and now engineering. We're doing those comments, but instead of just handing it to Gordon, I'm essentially taking it to the consultants and I'm walking them through it and saying, okay, this is why this is here and this is where you can find it in the code. So we're not commenting anything, we're not rendering any opinion or a judgment that would otherwise fall upon an engineer. We are simply pointing out all the compliance to the code standards and any policies that apply. I kind of sidestepped that. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you
Okay.
did good.
Okay.
I get it. So let me ask the last questions I had. I noticed the Welsh Comer contract showed their pricing, how much everybody costs. Their head guy's $165 an hour. Pro Engineers their head guy was $145 an hour. I didn't see anything on JUBs. Is that because of that, the project specific?
The project specific is not handled the same way. The project specific is catered directly to the project. Those rates have already been established in the original agreement. These are just amendments to that original agreement. In this situation, this is different because it's general services. We want to know what we're going to be paying for under general services. So yes, there's a reason why those rates weren't in these two proposals over here presented earlier.
Okay. Well, what do you think? Like it's our pathway. They've thought it out. They worked hard on it, huh?
Yeah. Well, again, it looks like it's necessary and reasonable, so.
I'm just glad Dan isn't here.
Well, I try to channel some of his.
No, you did good. You did good. All right, look for a motion then.
Okay. Then I would recommend that the city council execute a professional services agreement with Lake City Engineering, providing city professional engineering and surveying services on miscellaneous ongoing projects and on projects when a conflict of interest occur between JUB Engineers and Welch Comer Associates, and not to exceed $25,000.
I'll second that. Any other thoughts, comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Let's try and get that on consent. Thanks, you guys. We appreciate all your efforts, and with that, we would like to adjourn.
Thank you.
John, thanks for being here.